The life of every human being moves through different stages. When we are little, our family takes care of us. As we grow up, we have to face the real world and start taking care of the people around us. And when we grow old, moving slowly toward the end of life, we once again have to lean on others. In each of those stages, there is always a turning point where the way we see life changes completely compared with the stage before. That turning point is what people call growing up or becoming mature. A young woman leaving her hometown for the first time to go to college, suddenly living far from her parents and having to manage everything on her own. People call that growing up. A young man just out of college, sending out resumes, going to job interviews, trying to figure out how to make enough money to cover rent, groceries, student loans, and maybe send a little back to help his family. People call that growing up. An older man who just retired, no longer waking up to go to the office, having to slowly learn how to spend time with his grandkids and redefine his life without work, that too is called growing up. Because the environment, circumstances, and conditions each person is born into are different, the stages of life each of us goes through will also look very different. Someone who has to hustle for money at 18 will obviously hit important milestones very differently from a person whose parents can support them through college until 22. A person who stumbles and falls at 30, still worrying about where to send their resume tomorrow, will understand life very differently from someone who feels stable and settled at 30. That's why maturity in each person is different in both timing and intensity. However, there is one common misunderstanding in society. Many people assume that time, or more specifically, age, determines whether someone is mature. People often believe that maturity will come slowly, step by step, as we pass through the big milestones of life. 18, when you walk into college. 22, when you walk out of school and start making money. 30, when you start building your own career and family. They think humans simply learn to be mature naturally over time. But that's a mistake. Human beings don't really grow up little by little. People only truly grow up in sudden jumps, often after paying a heavy price. Only big shocks, painful failures, or deep moments of understanding are strong enough to transform our thinking and push us into real maturity. You cannot truly understand the cost of sacrifice if you have never once lived for someone else. You cannot truly grasp the value of money if you have never bled, sweated, or cried to earn it. You cannot truly cherish your loved ones if you have never once lost their attention, their presence, or their support. Every bit of maturity, every shift in mindset comes from real turning points in life that you must experience yourself. No one can teach you how to be mature if you have never stumbled. No one can hand you deep understanding if you have never broken down. Now let's talk about another angle of maturity. What exactly does it mean to be mature? Is it just caring about others and being willing to sacrifice? So many so-called good kids look like they are mature early. They're obedient. They understand things. They listen. They rarely cause trouble. But in reality, that kind of early maturity often means they are late in developing real maturity. If a child grows up with little sense of safety and is naturally sensitive, they often develop an early habit of closely watching people's faces and moods, trying to predict what will happen next. Very early on, they can feel whether someone likes them or not, what others might be thinking, and they adjust their behavior accordingly. On the surface, this looks like being thoughtful and mature, but because they grow this way too soon, they easily end up handing over the value of their entire self to other people's opinions. They become what psychology calls a people pleaser. Someone who constantly tries to keep others comfortable, even at their own expense. These people avoid conflict at all costs. They over-adapt, bend themselves into shapes that make others happy, and quietly abandon their own needs. They are afraid to express their own values or opinions because they fear criticism, rejection, or being seen as difficult. Over time, they lose a strong inner voice and a sense of independent direction. They burn through their emotional energy trying to keep everyone else okay until there is not enough left to think about what they themselves really want. They don't dare to try new things, don't dare to break the mold, and don't dare to live a life that doesn't look like everyone else's. That fear soon turns into shyness, social anxiety, and a fear of change. To parents and relatives, they are such a good kid. But because they learned so early to read others' faces and adjust themselves, They quietly lose the chance to truly explore the world, to gain real life experience, and to make their own mistakes. They might be smart and even good at analyzing other people's relationships, but when it comes to their own love life, they can reach their 20 seconds or 30 seconds without ever daring to make the first move, hold someone's hand, or step into a relationship with both feet. Deep down, they don't really know how to love, and they are scared of it. On the flip side, there are kids who are less sensitive but more courageous. Maybe they are a little thick-skinned, a little bold, but that also means they dare to try more, love more, and take initiative more. They don't have to torture themselves emotionally in order to pursue something or someone the right way. There are people who are called mature early, but in truth, they live in a dreamy, fragile state. Maybe they've loved and lost and are stuck in heartbreak. They might be great at analyzing with a rich inner world, but they are terrified of change, scared of failure, and fear being mocked or humiliated. In their heads are endless philosophies about how the world works, but their real-world experience is thin and their social understanding is extremely limited. They are intelligent children who know a lot in theory, but do very little in practice. Their early mental awakening becomes a burden, almost a curse, holding them back from moving forward. Like a child forced into a rigid mold too soon, they seem to know everything and yet, in reality, know very little and can't get much done. They look wise but are actually quite unseasoned. That's why maturity is not the same as obedience, endurance, sacrifice, perfectionism, or always being proper. Real maturity is simply a shift in mindset, having your own clear understanding after each major turn in your life. In contrast, those kids who look a bit slower, a bit tougher skinned, who can live honestly with themselves, dare to charge forward and take hits from life, often gather a huge amount of real-world experience. At the same age, they may be 100 times more seasoned than the ones considered mature early, and they can easily overtake them without mercy. People who seem mature early are often like tall, fancy buildings covered in fog. That fog is their defense. They hide behind overthinking, theories, and daydreams to avoid crashing into the hard walls of real life. But if you push through that fog and step inside, you may find just a half-finished construction, nothing special at all. Real maturity is not a fog. It is something you build brick by brick. It is the patience to lay one stone at a time, the courage to keep walking when no one is clapping for you, and the stubbornness to keep moving even when people misunderstand or laugh at you. Many people secretly wish they could jump straight to the finish line. Others are so attached to a single path, a single method, that even when life clearly shows it no longer works, they refuse to change. They drag themselves down the same broken road in the same broken car and call that loyalty or being responsible. That is not maturity. Mature people are the ones who dare to break out of the old script. They dare to act, dare to take the hit, dare to change direction when needed, and dare to stand face to face with their own mistakes. When they finally walk through the fear of failure and the fear of pain, they rise again from the very mud they once drowned in. One of the clearest signs of immaturity is chronic procrastination. I'll start tomorrow, I'll look into that next month, I'll try something new next year, I'll think about dating in a year or two, I'll do it when I feel ready. They are always waiting for a perfect state before taking action. And if they can't find a perfect method, they would rather do nothing. So what now? Two simple truths. First, life is never certain. There is no banquet already set up where you can just sit down and eat without ever stepping foot in the kitchen. In plain words, life is constantly trying to chew you up and spit you out if you let it. Resources are limited, jobs are limited, opportunities are limited. There is no special prize for the one who sits quietly, behaves perfectly, and never fights for anything. We are all trying to survive in a crowded, unstable world where nothing is guaranteed. Everything is changing all the time. Only when you fully accept that uncertainty and stop demanding that life must be safe and predictable, do you start to become more proactive, flexible, and strong. That is when maturity quietly walks in. Second, life is a moving process. Everything is changing all the time. Nothing about you is truly fixed unless you decide to freeze yourself. Maybe you were bad at English in middle school. That doesn't mean you are doomed to be bad forever. Maybe you were shy as a teenager. That doesn't mean you must be shy at 40. People love to feed you the lazy belief that if something isn't naturally for you, it'll never be for you. But that's emotional thinking, not reality. Reality is, skills can be built, character can be trained, and identity can be reshaped with time and effort. Many of the people the world now calls successful started as the last ones anyone would bet on. Bad grades, awkward social skills, average or unattractive looks, no impressive background. No one told them they would make it. They decided to believe it anyway. They failed, adjusted, failed again, and kept going while others were still busy overthinking. That's the quiet pattern behind real growth. At the end of the day, you do not need to grow up for your parents, your friends, or the strangers judging you from behind their screens. You do not need to live according to someone else's timeline or checklist. You grow up for yourself. You face your own problems, repair your own flaws, and build your own character, not because someone told you to, but because you refuse to stay small. When you focus on building real competence, real integrity, and real strength from the inside out, maturity becomes a side effect. Everything else, the roles, the labels, the expectations, is just a cage if you let it be. And if you learn the wrong things from the wrong people, it is sometimes worse than taking the wrong medicine. Now, let's talk about kindness and people-pleasing. There is a painful truth you eventually have to face. If you feed a dog for 3 days, it may remember you for 3 years. But you can stay with a human being for 3 years, and they may need only 3 days to forget you. You can buy them gifts, give them money, cook for them, care for them in comfort, and yet one misunderstanding, one moment of conflict can wipe the slate clean as if you had never done anything at all. Why? Because what people call feelings or love is just one slice of their emotional weather, and emotions are famously unstable. They swing, they crash, they flip overnight. So never be foolish enough to try to satisfy every demand of another person. The nature of blind people pleasing is that you hand over what is precious to you too easily. And when something comes too easily, people rarely respect it. You burn your energy for them. You rescue them when they won't even try to rescue themselves. To understand human nature, you have to accept a brutal formula. In real life, 100 minus 1 can equal 0, and 0.1 plus 1 can feel like 100. Do someone a favor every single day, and then one day you do less. They feel betrayed. Do almost nothing for them, and then one day help a little more. They feel deeply grateful. The math of emotions is nothing like the math in a textbook. That's why helping people is a virtue, but not everyone is worthy of your help. There is a saying in many cultures, help the urgent, not the endlessly careless. Chronic chaos and chronic poverty are often rooted not just in bad luck, but in mindset and choices. If a person's character is broken and they refuse to change, they will waste your kindness and eventually freeze your heart. In any society, history and stories repeat the same pattern. Some people will betray the hand that feeds them for the smallest temptation, while others will risk their life for a leader or a friend who once showed them real trust. Kindness, given to the right person, is light. Given to the wrong person, it becomes gasoline poured on a fire that will burn you. Kindness without boundaries is a flame that slowly consumes you from the inside. You think you are helping, but in truth, you are absorbing other people's problems and letting them crush you. There are people with twisted character. You help them and they feel no gratitude. Instead, they secretly resent you, envy what you have, and start to think of you as easy to use, easy to lie to, easy to drain. The label, "you're such a good person," can be a very sweet trap. When someone says it while constantly taking from you, what they really mean is, "you're convenient." Please don't stop being convenient. The cold truth is this: you should not help anyone unconditionally except in very rare situations of real emergency. And even then, you must still protect your own core. Living well for yourself, knowing and guarding your limits, that is not selfishness, that is survival. If you don't take care of yourself, no one else will is not a cynical quote. It's a survival rule. That doesn't mean you should become cruel or stop doing good. It means most of what we call being a good person is actually a messy mix of fear, guilt, and the desire to be liked. A truly good person is not a doormat. A truly good person is principled. They have boundaries. They know when to say no. They choose carefully whom to trust, whom to help, and how far to go. Many people in real life are exhausted, bitter, and secretly angry because they have spent years trying to be the perfect good person in everyone else's eyes. They always put other people's needs first, throw away their own feelings, and are even willing to be stepped on as long as nobody calls them selfish. Psychology has a name for this: people-pleasing addiction. This addiction comes with two deadly mistakes. First, believing that if I'm good to them, they'll be good to me. They give with a hidden expectation. When that expectation isn't met, they don't pull back, they double down. They blame themselves for not being good enough, give more, expect more, and then collapse harder when reality doesn't change. Second, they believe that by endlessly giving, they can keep a relationship alive. It is true that healthy relationships require patience and giving, but only when both sides show up. If the other person never gives back, your giving becomes not just useless, but destructive. To be blunt, in any relationship, the one who gives much more is usually in the weaker position. The more you give without balance, the more you lower your own value in that dynamic. Your emotional cost goes up. Your sunk cost grows bigger. Then, when you finally want to leave, you can't. You feel guilty, heartbroken, and stuck. Meanwhile, the other person can walk away as easily as kicking off an old pair of shoes. There's even a term in psychology sometimes called the emotional boomerang effect. When you keep being good to someone without boundaries, instead of being grateful, they slowly see your kindness as normal, as expected. Then they stop feeling anything about it and start demanding more. They will squeeze you dry without a second thought. If you've ever been trapped in that cycle, blinded by a sense of duty or guilt, sucked dry by the role of the good one, then it is time to dissect the truth about human nature and your own patterns. This is where real maturity shows up. When your kindness grows teeth, when your generosity learns to say no, when you understand that compassion is not for those who trample your boundaries, learning to refuse, learning to be cold when necessary, is often the kindest thing you can do for yourself. Do not let yourself be destroyed by your own softness. Growing up is not just about paying bills or getting older. It is about seeing clearly who really values you and who only values what they can take from you. It is about knowing the difference between sacrifice and self-betrayal. It is about learning that you can love people and still say no. You can care deeply and still walk away. In the end, maturity is not a title other people give you. It is a quiet decision you make day after day, to face reality instead of hiding from it, to act instead of endlessly waiting, to guard your heart without hardening it completely, and to be kind without letting your kindness be used as a weapon against you.